I've always wondered what were the origins of Japan and its early society, and how did the Yamato rulers, Shinto traditions, and early social structures come together to shape the first political, religious, and cultural foundations that influenced Japanese civilization for centuries. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Japan, fascinating civilization, fascinating culture, very ancient roots of this culture, very beautiful culture even today, deep linkages with Indian civilization and culture, polytheistic culture, all of that, right? Very similar to India in so many ways, and very 2000-year relationship with India also. So how did Japan start off? Starts off like 2000, 3000, maybe several thousand BC. So Japan starts off as many small groups, many small pockets of people on the Japanese islands. First of all, let's look at the islands, shall we? So, what do the Japanese islands look like? So, Japan is this archipelago east of Eastern Asia, right? This is Japan. It's an archipelago. You have the northern island, the great island Hokkaido. Then you have the Kuril Islands, which are now part of Russia. Then we have the major island of Japan, on which we have Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, and so on. Then we have Tokushima, this island here. Okay. Then we also have this island here, and a lot of other islands like Yakushima, like Toshima, and we have Okinawa. Where is Okinawa? This obviously is Okinawa, and it goes all the way to the outskirts of Taiwan, Taketomi Island, and Yonaguni. So these are the Japanese islands, and a bunch of more islands they have all around the place, right? So that is Japan. It's an archipelago. Where is Tsushima? Tsushima. This is Tsushima. And you had battles here between samurais and Mongols. Mongols belonging to the empire of Shri Kublai Khan. And the Mongols lost. Kublai Khan, not Chinggis. Chinggis never lost a thing. Kublai did, his grandson. Now, coming back to Japan. So that is Japan. So Japan starts off as many small groups of people on these islands, okay? And over time, one powerful group emerged, the Yamato, and they used religion, Shinto, and the social hierarchy of Japan to pull all these groups together into what eventually became Japanese civilization. So, first of all, you had a bunch of people called the Jomon people. Jomon, they were hunter gatherers. They did hunting and fishing and gathering of seaweed and gathering of plants and all that. And they made these distinctive clay pots. Let's take a look at the Jomon clay pots. Okay, let's quickly take a look at that. Jomon clay pots. Very famous. Jomon clay pots. Very famous. Jomon pottery. So very distinctive, very famous pottery, Jomon pottery. Okay, so the Jomon people made these very famous clay pots and the pottery and all of that. Then you had people who came in from the Asian mainland, East Asia, Northeast Asia, a bunch of people called the Yayoi people. Yayoi people. So they brought new practices into Japan, into the Japanese islands, metal tools, weapons, and rice farming, agriculture, various kinds of agriculture. All of that was brought into Japan by the Yayoi people. So then you have the introduction of rice farming in Japan. So because of this, you had people who could settle down, and this gave rise to larger villages, and people started focusing on irrigation. And as a consequence, some communities became more powerful and larger and more powerful than others. So you had all these different groups of people. Typically, these were clans. Clans are extended families. They're not tribes, they're extended families. So you had all these different clans in Japan with their own land, with their own gods, with their own set of gods, with their own warriors. So each clan, each group of people would have a separate set of gods that they would worship. So it was a very polytheistic system in Japan. Then around about 3rd to 5th century AD, one clan emerged powerful, more powerful than the others. This clan was called the Yamato clans. So the Yamato leaders, initially were just, local chieftains. Then they eventually started calling themselves kings. And eventually they became emperors. So they started ruling over other clans slowly, and eventually the whole of Japan. So that is how the Yamato took over in Japan. So society in Japan was built around these clans. Each clan had a small chieftain. Each clan was small, and each had a chieftain who was the main priest, who was also the political leader. And society was hierarchical, upper classes, lower classes, all of that. Farmers. Society needs to have structure. Every society has structure. So you had a hierarchy in society, like every other society in the world. And most people, they farmed rice and did fishing, and some would be warriors and so, that sort of thing. So early Japanese religion was called Shinto. It was all about spirits. Kami. You've heard the word kamikaze? The storm of the gods or something, kamikaze, right? The divine wind. The kamikaze is this divine wind that saved Japan from the Mongol invasions, not just one but two Mongol invasions. The kamikaze. So kami means the Japanese gods, Japanese spirits, nature spirits, mountain spirits, river spirits, ancestral spirits, storm spirits, and so on. These are the kami. So the Shinto religion, the original religion of the Japanese, was all about various kami and the worship of kami. Each clan had its own set of kami that they worshipped, and each clan would have its own festivals, its own rituals to keep the kami happy and to ensure that the clan was protected from bad fortune and whatever, right? And there was no holy book, there was no prophet, there were no rules. It was all about various local customs and rituals and offerings, respect for your ancestors, respect for nature. Sounds exactly like Hinduism, not like Buddhism, right? So that was the culture of Japan. And the Yamato rulers, eventually they became powerful, and they claimed that their ancestors were linked to very important, very powerful kami, the sun goddess, I forget the name of the sun goddess, and so on. And so by making these claims, they sought to make their leadership seem more natural and sacred, just based on the laws of nature and all that. And this was the beginning of the idea that the emperor's family has divine connection, divine protection, right? And the emperor is the son of God, that sort of thing. And this became a core part of Japanese political life and religious life for centuries. And this is essentially the foundation of Japanese society, Japanese culture, Japanese civilization. Eventually, you had the idea in Japan of one central ruler, the emperor, who ruled over all the clans. And eventually, sometimes you had a situation where the emperor was ruler only in name, and the real power was in the hands of maybe shoguns or samurai, that sort of thing. But the emperor was the embodiment of the rule of Japan and that sort of thing. So that is essentially the forces that have shaped Japan. Shinto traditions. It's Japanese society historically was about villages that engaged in rice farming and fishing and so on, clan-based society. And then you had Yamato rulers who built a centralized state, and it was all about Shinto beliefs, about kami and sacred ancestors. And eventually you had Hindu and Buddhist traditions coming in from the West, from China, from India through China, and that was then syncretized into Japanese society and culture. And eventually the kami and the Buddha, they kind of came together, and you had a whole bunch of Indian deities that the Japanese started worshipping as kami. One of the great kamis was Benzaiten, right? Saraswati. Another kami is Kangiten, that is Vinayak, that is obviously Lord Ganesh. And every other Hindu god or goddess was incorporated into the pantheon of the kami. So a lot of Hindu practices became Shintoized. It was just natural. It was a natural fit. Buddhism was more artificially fitted into Japan, but Hinduism was a natural fit for Japan. So that kind of is the story of Japan.